I actually thought that the only way to start a business was you need to raise millions of dollars, start a Delaware C-Corp, apply to Y Combinator, raise venture capital, and get on TechCrunch. I think you win in life if you can find things that feel like play to you that others feel like work. So this to me, this isn't work at all. Oftentimes the cheapest mistake can be the most expensive, or the most expensive mistake is choosing a cheap accountant.
Patrick Findaro here, founding partner at Visa Franchise. Today we have a special guest, one of the key partners that we work with, Arjun Mahadevan, who's the founder and CEO of Doula. Arjun, thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having me on. Let's Doula it.
I love I love how you're coining that phrase, or you did coin the phrase. And then we were just talking about your videos that you lived at your office in New York. For how long was that?
It was 25 days, and I slept and lived in the office for 25 days. I was allowed to leave the office. So to clarify, I wasn't trapped there. I could leave. I showered. A lot of people asked, did you shower? Did you eat? I did. But yes, for 25 consecutive days, I worked here and I slept here on a futon that's outside in the middle of the office.
And for those that aren't familiar with your firm, what does Doula do?
I'll explain through the challenge. One day I was on the stair stepper. I feel like I have ideas. The body moves, the brain solves. And an idea I had was, what if we could set this aspirational challenge to form a record number of LLCs and live in the office? It's a viral hooky campaign. Someone gets an inside look of what it's like building the company. We document the entire thing. And the idea was, if we document the journey and people see, oh, he's this many away from 1,000 LLCs, they're more likely to actually form an LLC with us and the flywheel spins. So that was the idea. And Doula helps entrepreneurs from all around the world start a US business. We do LLC formation in all 50 states. But we heard this feedback from day one, and it's a pain point we went through where we actually got into Y Combinator with a company that was a video messaging app. It was kind of like Instagram stories, but for work. And through that process, one, the business didn't work because unlike you, Patrick, or I guess myself, most people do not like to record themselves on video, which I guess is obvious now, but in hindsight, especially in a work setting, people don't like to do that. So the business didn't work. We got into YC, and separate note, a lot of people ask, is YC worth it? I think it is, but YC doesn't determine if your business succeeds. The market does, the team does. YC can help, but we got into YC, the business didn't work. And the most painful part of that was not that the business didn't work, but I spent over $30,000 on these legal fees, setting up a business, IP transfers, talking about things like immigration, visas, bookkeeping, taxes, all of the stuff which wasn't building the business. And the thing that ate at me, I think in life, time and regret's one of the saddest words, but that's really all you have. And I thought, damn, maybe if I spent more time building product or selling, it could have worked.
Hey, you want to come to the US, get to E2 visa, L1, or straight out a green card? We've been doing this for the past 10 years, and we wrote a book. It's called Own Your American Dream. What is special about this book is that we went back and have spoken to 21 successful applicants who opened up their businesses here and who are continuing to live the American dream. Hear it from them, because they talk about their fears, their mental state, what went wrong, what went right. The entire blueprint is there. You could just buy the book right here. You can just read it and make up your mind. Continue your video.
And then for the second business, because I had the itch, I was like, wait a second, that's a business. Why can't I click a button and have this all set up? Not a company and a checklist of things to do, but actually either partners or in-house products like bookkeeping, bank account setup, taxes, partners for immigration or visas that can handle everything. And we heard this term from customers saying, oh, like you're a one-stop shop. And with that feedback, we coined this term of, hey, we're this business in a box, this one-stop shop where it's not just an LLC and a prompt to go to ChatGPT to figure it out on your own. It's Doula does it all for you. And if we can't do it, we're going to point you to a partner we trust that can do it for you. So to circle back, the challenge was, let's live in the office. Let's form a lot of LLCs. We actually formed 1,000 LLCs in that 25-day stretch, which was a new all-time high. And that was me saying sometimes I think, if you put 20% in, you get 20% back. If you put 80% in, you get 80% back. If you put 99 in, you get 99% back. But if you put 100% in life, I think you get 1,000 back. And the universe just says, hey, if someone's really going after it, we're going to throw them a bone. So we help people with LLC formation in all 50 states. We're YC backed. We've raised $13 million, over 10,000 companies served on 175 countries. And ultimately, our goal is, even if you don't work with us, we want to provide the right education so you don't make the same mistakes or waste the same money that I did. But obviously, we think time is money. And for a founder, time is your most valuable asset. So if we can take this unsexy yet critical back office off your plate so you can focus on what you do best. We can then handle the rest. And the most rewarding part is we get to be a small part of the journey too.
So you mentioned all the countries. Like, what's like a typical profile of a client that you're working with at Doula?
Have you ever spent time in San Francisco before?
Oh yeah, the first
Okay.
time I was there, my friend was mining Ethereum. That was back in, I think,
Okay.
2017 or 16. I was like, oh, what is cryptocurrency?
So you know San Francisco well. I'm going to answer this question by telling you a story of when I used to live in San Francisco, and I lived in Hayes Valley by the Painted Ladies. And every day I would bike to work. I used to work at Dropbox, so I would bike down the hill and get to Market Street. And on Market Street, this was my commute every day. I'd look to the right. There's the Uber office. Bike a bit more. Oh, there's the Twitter office. Take a right on Second. Oh, there's the LinkedIn office. Then I would get down to Brannan. I would dock my bike. There's Dropbox, and I could see down the street Airbnb and Pinterest. Every single day, that's all I saw. I saw people going in, I saw the companies growing. And I share this because, I kid you not, I actually thought that the only way to start a business was you need to raise millions of dollars, start a Delaware C Corp, apply to Y Combinator, raise venture capital, and get on TechCrunch. It sounds so dumb because it was. I didn't know you could bootstrap a company. I thought you need money to start a company. So my view of the world was you need Delaware C Corps and venture capital to start something. And I think that's not a bad thing. Those are massive companies that have had huge impacts. But to flip to Doula, the ironic thing is our first customer was a Delaware C Corp that got into YC. But the next 99, actually more, they were all solopreneurs, individuals, or maybe small teams of 1+ consultants to start that wanted LLCs. They wanted a limited liability company. They wanted access to US bank account. They wanted to sell to US customers. And they were a small, lean team. They didn't have the money or resources, which is
Mostly
why
U.S. based, or are they based outside the U.S.?
we started mostly international. So top countries being founders in India or Dubai or Canada or
Right.
Turkey. We've served founders in over 175 countries. So we can dispel some myths. The first one is you can start a U.S. business from outside the U.S. You can get a U.S. business bank account from outside the U.S. And you can actually file taxes with the IRS. Most cases, and again, I'm not a CPA, we can get into this, you don't even have to pay US taxes. It's an informational tax filing and you pay taxes in your home country. So we very quickly learned most of the market and our ideal customer is actually this solopreneur. And our goal is, hey, for these smaller bootstrapped companies that are trying to make it, let's give them the same resources and the same tooling that a massive Delaware C Corp with millions of dollars can get, and sort of democratize that access to American entrepreneurship.
And you were also blessed. I mean, you went to UPenn. Was it Wharton?
Yeah, I studied mathematics in the college and then statistics in the Wharton School of Business.
So, I mean, you were kind of went on a fast track, then Dropbox, that it was relatively privileged. But the fact that you're offering to make it easier for those that didn't necessarily go to an Ivy League school to still open a company, make a living for themselves, family, and maybe scale up to whatever they want to do is pretty impactful.
I agree. I mean, we're obviously biased, but I think that the things a lot of people ask me, a friend actually last weekend, we got lunch on Saturday and I was walking back to the office. Then he looked at me and said, is it miserable when you go work on the weekend? And I told him no. And the reason why is that weekend, I think you win in life if you can find things that feel like play to you that others feel like work. So this to me, this isn't work at all. Like we're you and I are chatting, we're telling the story.
Yeah,
Others
fun.
can watch this and learn from it. Others might say this is miserable, but I don't even count or think of this as work. But my point here is that we get feedback now from customers every day, and I share these every week in our Roomba or All Hands of people saying, I didn't know this was possible without Doula. I couldn't have started this business without Doula. I'm a single mom, and I thought Doula was too expensive, but then I realized, holy crap, this is an investment, not an expense, and you're going to actually help me succeed. And that never gets old. It has not gotten old, and that's the most rewarding thing, where my biggest fear in life is just floating through it. And I do feel like a company is a vehicle to actually have an impact on other people, and our tentacles spread. We get to be a part of that founder's journey, and then the customers they have and their family, and the web just spreads. And I think that's such a cool way to have an impact.
What's your take? And I want to go into like the challenges that international, business owners, founders have, but what's your take on the business bank account? Because I guess I can start, like, it seems like it's always open and shut in. Like, well, you're from Pakistan. Okay, great. You can go to Mercury, you can go to these banks, and then shut. And then there's also some banks that have physical locations that if it's a Wyoming LLC in this industry, it's fine. Or if you're based in South Florida, you can open up at this, publicly traded small cap bank. But this much more than me. We have, I don't know, this year probably 250 clients where you'll have, if you keep that 25-day, 1,000, trend, 10,000 plus. So what do you see on that side?
First myth to dispel, I said this earlier, you can open a US business bank account from outside the US. In the US, you take it for granted, you see a Chase Bank on the corner or Charles Schwab, but you can do it internationally. Now, the big misconception a lot of people have is, can I just get the bank account? You actually need this thing called an EIN, which is your employee identification number. Think of that as the social security number for your business. I have a social which ties me to the IRS. My LLC is tied to the IRS through the EIN. But to get an EIN, you actually need the LLC. And for an LLC, you can form in all 50 states in the US. My recommendation, a lawyer tells you 11 things you shouldn't do. I'll tell you the one thing you should do. I actually recommend an international founder forms in Wyoming. It's slightly cheaper than Delaware, $60 versus $300 per year. The first LLC was invented in Wyoming. Don't sleep on it. It's the Swiss Alps of the Rockies. Great privacy protection. It's anonymous LLC state. So that's my rec. You can choose any state though, but my strong opinion, loosely held, is just go with Wyoming. But to answer your question, it is trickier for international founders. You have to fax a form to the IRS, Form SS4, to get your EIN. And then banks run this process called KYC, or Know Your Customer. So a lot of people ask us, can you guarantee my bank account will open? And here's exactly what I tell them. Banks have restricted types of businesses they don't work with. That could be cannabis, it could be adult entertainment, it could be money transmitter services. You can't be on that list. That's either set by the bank or at the federal level. Banks also have restricted countries. That could also be from a risk perspective or federal again. There could be sanctions against a certain country. Some of these countries are in the Middle East
North
or
Korea.
Africa. Could be anywhere, but if it's on that list, yeah, we can't change that. So if you actually aren't a restricted business in terms of the list, you're not in the restricted country, the third biggest hurdle that comes up for a lot of banks is, are there actually US operations? And I think this has been the biggest net lift or net question that's come is, the fear these banks have is, it's some international company that has no presence in the US and is just money laundering. That's effectively what they're trying to solve for. So what the bank's trying to see, and this is where the asks for a US address. Some banks are saying a registered agent address doesn't work. You need a physical address, or you need proof that in the next 6 months or 12 months, you're going to be expanding to the US. They want to make sure there's a legitimate US presence. Even if it's not physical, you're still expanding there. So tactically, and this is the update we'll share now, there are certain banks like Mercury that have a higher open rate or are more willing to work with non-US residents. There are other banks, one's called Relay Financial. Over the past, we've seen them support and not support. Now it seems like they're coming back. There's other international currency transfer tools. You can put these in the buckets of the Payoneers or the Wises that also could help, depending on your use case. If you're looking to take payouts from Shopify or Amazon, deposit them in this USD account, and then send them internationally too. So my biggest advice here would be, as long as you have a legitimate business in a non-restricted category or country, and you have genuine proof that you're going to be selling to the US or expanding to the US, certain banks might require this physical address. And there are solutions that you can use to get this virtual physical address. It's going to cost more, but it's possible. If you check all those boxes, what I say is, there's no reason to believe the bank will reject you. For a lot of founders, that's still tough to hear because you're putting out money to get the LLC, you're starting the journey. But ultimately, this is the way we view Doula. The ultimate job to be done is you want a bank account and a way to get paid. Everything else is a wrapper. That's how I actually view what you do too. Not to diminish what we do, but we are a wrapper. We help you start and get to that payment processor and then keep it compliant. We do bookkeeping and taxes in-house. And similarly, you're effectively helping folks make sure that they can move to the right country, or they have the right the permit or the regulation in place so that they can continue to run their business and actually live in that country too. And yes, technically founders could try to DIY all of this, whether that's a visa or the entity formation or bookkeeping or tax, but none of that gets back to making money, which is a business. A business is when revenue exchanges. It's not when you start your LLC. It's not when you get your visa. That's not to say you shouldn't do these things, but a business starts when a customer pays you for what you're doing, either with their time or their money. And if we can take all that off your plate, I think it's more likely you succeed. And then the coolest thing is we get to increase entrepreneurship globally. And you also don't have to go through life saying, I never gave it a try, because you don't have to say, I don't know this stuff. That's not your job. You can trust or defer to an expert who's done it before and focus on what you do best.
And, one thing, I don't know if you've seen this or how many clients you're talking to, but we've had success where our clients have a family member or a US partner to speed up the EIN process. So instead of 30, 40 days, get it in, just a couple of days. And then that usually facilitates the bank account process where they could open up with a Chase or Bank of America with that local US partner just walking in and having, the being the managing member and having the decision making authority to open up a bank account.
Okay, I'll give my very candid answer. That
Please.
Can work. Now, here's where I put the asterisk on can. The IRS does not explicitly authorize the use of, they call these nominees, or like someone else who's effectively not the true responsible party. So there are companies out there that say, oh, you're a non-US resident, we'll get your EIN in 2 days. And they might be using someone else's social to do that. You technically can do it. The odds the IRS is going to do anything are incredibly low. And I'm saying that here. They're incredibly low. You'll probably, quote unquote, get away with it. But it's not directly authorized. So my recommendation to all these things are, you can take the shortcuts, but ultimately there's a chance you're going to have to pay the piper. And I think I'd rather just play it safe and do it by the book and not have these asymmetric downside risks. So you can,
sure.
And this is what I'll clarify.
Time.
Sorry?
So if it's like, in our case, it's like a sincere business relationship where it's a brother, a U.S. partner.
There we go.
Like,
so that is sense. Very different. That's the
but
second asterisk on the can.
Paying
a company, an actual legitimate use case, fantastic. That works. But this is where, like, use your judgment. Like,
yes.
If the person's part of the business, or they're like, hey, I'm going to be a small member, but help you get it set up and provide advisory, that's very different than, oh, like this person on Fiverr said they're going to use their social. Like, it's very different. Nothing against Fiverr, but if it's a legitimate relationship or legitimate case, it doesn't have to be a full majority owner. It could be fractional. It could be, hey, I'm assisting, like I'm helping with the operations or the setup. It's a family, it's a friend. Then sure, but use your judgment there. And this is where, if it sounds too good to be true, in most cases, you have to just do a bit of digging. I actually say this ironically because a lot of people ask us, like, wait, you actually do the bookkeeping and the taxes? Like, this has to be a scam. And I think part of it is there are so many people out there and offers that do end up being scams. So we still have to work hard very much to this day to prove like we actually do all this. People ask, like, we've gotten asked, like, can you send a picture of your office before? Are you actual humans here? So I think you can never have enough social proof in business. And it's why I think conversations like this are so powerful, because you can actually, I'll share one more story here. When we were starting Doula, I used to do every single sales call and this customer success. You didn't have a team. And I was getting to know some customers, and I ultimately asked them, like, hey, why did you ultimately choose to use Doula? And then this founder said, at first I thought you were a scam because I went to your LinkedIn and the photo was different than your Twitter profile, which was different than like a blog post that was written. So I thought you were just a made up person. And here I am thinking, holy crap, like this person's Inspector Clouseau going on a detective chase, like the bulletin board with strings, trying to figure out if this is real. I hadn't thought twice about that. So after that, what I did is I made all my profile pictures the same. But it just goes to show, like, all of these things build trust. And your business is your baby. That's why we're called Doula. It's a play on the word Doula. Your business is your baby. You're not going to let your baby go without food or water. You're going to grow your baby. Like people say your baby is like it's your heart beating outside of you. I think the same thing applies for your business. So you want to trust that the person or the company taking care of that or these ancillary services is going to take care of it with the same level of trust, attention, and care that you are. And I totally get where people are coming from there. So I used to kind of get a bit like grumpy when someone's like, what do you mean you don't trust us? But now I'm like, no, you have to earn that right every single day. And like many things, it takes years to build and you can lose it very quickly, unfortunately.
I think a big part's too culturally. Like you have us beat. We've had clients in about 70 different countries. You're at 175?
Yeah.
So, certain cultures, especially where contracts aren't enforceable or, the legal system isn't at the same standard as the US, scams are more common, and they really have like their guard up where, we wouldn't have a Canadian or an English guy saying that, but there's a lot of nationalities where they're very skeptical before they start working with us, including throughout Latin America, where they're like, is this real? And it's like, yes, we're speaking Spanish with them. I speak Portuguese, but they still, and it's like, go on YouTube, go, talk to some of our former clients. But yeah, it's just, I see it as just a cultural difference, and it's the environment that they know. that is operating very differently in the US. And many of our clients want to leave that environment for partly because of that reason.
So true. I actually do have a question, and
Please.
what I'd love to, because I mean you're an expert in an area which we aren't. So that's the other thing I like to say is like we pick where we want to be really good. That's your formation, that's your bookkeeping, your tax, and we have people in house. We don't outsource it. We're going to be really good there. So we actually get asked by a lot of people, like, can you help me get it? Can Doula help me get a visa? And the question I have is, I think that it's actually like quite informative to starting a business is, when do you typically people see they should or they decide to start a U.S. entity versus just keeping it in their home country? And this might be impossible to do because I've done some research and I feel like there's an alphabet of different visas and different letters and acronyms too. But I wonder if there's like a crash course for how someone can think about, if I am starting an LLC internationally in the U.S., when should I come talk to you? Or like, when should I think through implications for getting a visa or not getting a visa, etc.?
Generally, we prefer, if someone wants to move to the US, whether it's the founder, one of the business owners, or one of the executives, that's the point to, talk to us. And whether they've already established the LLC or we work with Doula to establish the LLC, get the EIN, and help them with the actual visa work. Or a big part, visa franchise, we started helping people find franchises. And that's so a lot of our clients where they don't know what they want to do. So we prefer to start working with our clients pretty early in the process. And there's different visas that, cross the gamut, but most of them do require a US entity. Like if it's an E2 visa or L1 visa, O1 for entrepreneurs, we could represent the foreign company. That is an option, but most people eventually end up incorporating. And then I think you can probably relate to this. And I've heard this from a lot of our clients that maybe they're doing, 500K of sales in the US and 2 million, in other countries abroad. They're mainly their main country they're operating from. Certain American clients, and I'm sure this is across the globe, they just prefer to pay a US company, US bank account. They don't want to mess around with international wires, currency exchange. So I think once your business feels real and that you're starting to hit a stride, or you see an impact, or you're willing to place a bet on the U.S. market, that's a good time to basically open up the business in the States.
That's super helpful. I would also add to the last thing you said of, a lot of customers do, the US dollar is a globally accepted currency. I mean, you could argue that's happening for things like Bitcoin. We talked about Ethereum earlier, but the dollar is just a globally accepted currency. So there is huge value in being able to offer that to customers globally. And I'd say a huge thing that a lot of people sleep on is, when you start an LLC, you're not just getting liability protection and access to banking, access to potential US credit. You get the professionalism that comes with it. You go from being a freelancer to a business. All I did was just start an LLC, but I think that can really change your demeanor and how serious you take a business. It's a mindset shift, which goes a long way, because I think at many things in life, it really is the mindset. There's two people who are going at it, and maybe one person puts in a bit more or comes off a bit more authentic, but I think they just believe a bit more. They've taken the mindset of, hey, this is more serious. Like, failing isn't an option, so you're going to put in a bit more effort, even if obviously failure is possible. But that to me can make the difference between your business succeeding or not succeeding.
And Arjun, I know something that our clients, have been very happy about is the business in the box model. And, we don't have a CPA on our team at Visa Franchise. We don't do the bookkeeping. We don't file tax returns. And we love that, one-stop shop for all that with Doula. Can you share with our audience a little bit about the business in the box and how you serve clients with that solution?
Absolutely. The journey starts, and a lot of people think it finishes with formation, but it's really just starting. And when you start, LLC in any of the 50 states, again, my rec is simple decision tree. If you're raising U.S. venture capital, Delaware C-Corp. That's going to be required by investors. That's the standard. If you're not raising venture capital, LLC. That's going to be your bread and butter. If you live in the U.S., the state you live in is typically best. Otherwise, you'll pay fees in multiple states for foreign qualifications. If you live outside the U.S., I said Wyoming, you can technically choose any state. So you've gotten your LLC. You then get your EIN. You successfully get your business bank account open. We directly integrate with Mercury. So literally your information is pre-filled. We have a direct relationship with them. Again, we cannot guarantee it is opened, but if you have all the boxes checked, there's little reason to believe it.
Can I quote you on a percent? Is it like 90%, 95%?
It's high. It's not in the 90s. It's high, but again, this is where, because we've had people, people watch these videos. They say, hey, you said you could open a Mercury bank account, so I'm going to clarify. It is not
We
100%
could open
real
it.
time.
We're not gonna say that definitely it's gonna open, but we could open it for you.
Absolutely, yeah. We're helping to enable it, prepare everything, one click. Now you got your bank account. This is where the journey's just started. We offer bookkeeping solutions. And let me actually define bookkeeping, because a lot of people, do I need bookkeeping? What's accounting? First, those two terms are used somewhat interchangeably. The way I view bookkeeping or accounting is actually, it's two things. It's knowing your numbers, and you can only manage what you can measure, but we'll get back to that. It's knowing your numbers, and it's preparing to file your taxes. So two things. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they do not separate personal from business. That's bad because you don't know your numbers then, everything's intermingled. You also do not have the ability to in the future potentially have tax write-offs, do the S-Corp election, have more professionalism. You don't have that separation. The corporate veil is actually pierced too. The point of having an LLC is that liability protection. So one of the easiest things you can do is get a business bank account. Keep things separate. Keep your personal on personal, transact through the business. Get a Stripe payment processor or Shopify, depending on what you're doing. Now, once you have that, the second easiest thing you can do is connect to some bookkeeping software. Candidly, you don't even need to pay for a dedicated bookkeeper at that point. We offer this, but I'm not going to say you need to do that. What I would say you need to do is have some software. Do not use Google Sheets. There's no need to do it by hand. There's free softwares. There's low-cost
QuickBooks
softwares.
okay?
Sorry?
Is QuickBooks okay?
Absolutely. QuickBooks, Wave, Doula has a solution. Xero has a solution. There are tons of solutions out there. Use some tool. It'll automatically connect to your bank account, to your Stripes, to whatever it is, and your transactions will flow in. That is 90% of the battle there. You know, an ounce of preparation is a pound of the cure. That is such a big part of just getting the transactions. And here's the reason why. Come tax season, Doula actually has bookkeepers and we have CPAs, licensed tax professionals on our team. We actually do your business tax return. We don't send you elsewhere. And one of the biggest things that can happen is come tax season, you either haven't done your books or your books are a disaster, meaning you have to pay for catch-up bookkeeping. That's an hourly rate. There's a cost to this. And you can do it on your own, but you likely don't want to, especially as a non-US founder. There can be heavy fines. There's this form called Form 5472, up to a $25,000 fine if you file incorrectly or late. So you typically will want to use a professional, and that filing is reviewed by our CPAs and then submitted. So I share this because with bookkeeping, and we do this in-house, we don't outsource it, your books are going to be done for you so that come tax season, everything's ready to go. You can then chat with one of our CPAs, we prepare, we submit it to the IRS for you. That's in terms of tax prep. In terms of knowing your numbers, here's what I'll say. There's a difference between 10,000 in revenue and 10,000 in profit. And there's so many things that come up where people don't get this, but I'll give you an example. If your business drives 10,000 in revenue, but you spent $20,000 on Facebook ads and 10,000 in salary, you've lost $20,000. And this might sound very silly, but you're going to be overwhelmed as a founder. It's so important to actually know the inputs and the outputs, the revenue, the cost, the profit. I would start there. There's many more ways you can go. Your customer acquisition cost, what's your retention, the lifetime value. But I would just start there. Bookkeeping allows you to actually know how much cash is going in, how much cash is going out, and that is the foundation. So with the business in a box, our goal is you can have complete peace of mind that your entity is set up correctly. You're going to file your taxes, your business returns to the US, and your books and foundations for your numbers are going to be set. If we can do that, you can then focus on all the hard stuff, like the real hard stuff, which is product testing and talking to customers. And you can have confidence and peace of mind that there's no stress, there's no time wasted. The paperwork's done for you and easily. We want to take care of that for you.
What do the founders for like our clients, for example, people that actually living in the US and they're here, what do they do for their personal filings?
Great question. We prepare what's called the Schedule C, which then goes on your 1040. So that's the personal filing. Now, this is the cool thing. We are a startup. We're constantly building. I'll hint towards in the future, Doula might be able to help with that. And again, there's a combination. If we can't do it today, we'll refer to other partners.
Someone in. Great.
Exactly. Individual CPA. But our approach is, if we don't think we can do it really well, we'll want to find a partner. So for example, Doula does not answer questions about visas. We are not immigration experts. We have a partner for that who's done this. It's their bread and butter. They're experts. So our goal is anytime we have a new question that comes in, I'll give you an example. A lot of our customers in e-commerce, they need a sales tax registration. We partner with this company called Numeral, where folks can actually get a registration, or if they're on a premium plan, a free registration. We partner with a company called OpenPhone if they need a phone line. Mercury for banking. We are not trying to do everything. The box does not include everything. There's certain things we do in-house, but we're not going to ever say to a founder, and if we do, we'll try to find a solution. Go figure it out on your own. We want to at least point them in the right direction.
We're the same way. You're doing it at a much larger scale than us, but we're definitely the same way with our clients. And that's a big reason why people work with us at Visa Franchise, that we can hold their hand
100%
throughout the way. Any recent success stories that you can think of for clients that use Doula or, Business in the Box, or any of the solutions that you have?
There's a recent example, exactly. And what's cool is we get to see these companies grow. The first thing is I actually think we get to live in the future, because a company comes to us, they're just starting, and they tell us what they're building. And we know it's like we're in on a secret, then they go build it and people use it. So we had this company called Flagaholics. On our website, if you scroll down and there's like a customer wall of love and testimonials, they actually started this business out of their dorm room in college. And they were these flags or posters that go on their wall. So they started this in college. And that's the first thing, which I think is so cool. I wasn't starting a business in college. I kind of wish I did. I think I was playing FIFA or video games, or I don't know, like just studying for a math test. I was not starting a business, but I think you learn so much from doing, not just theorizing. But they started this business out of their dorm, and recently they actually sold the business. So we actually realized we have our first, one of our first, because we're going to publish this, close the loop full stories. Like the business was, onboarded, worked with Doula, then got to the exit. And that's the ultimate goal for any founder. They might want to run it forever, or they'll at least, take some time out or a fractional exit. But that was just really cool to see these college students started the business and then got to an exit. Outside of that, though, we do work mostly, and I think this is from an industry perspective, just mostly e-commerce entrepreneurs. And that's digital. Today, you have to be digital or e-com by default in many things, whether it's services or a product. But many folks on Shopify, many folks on Amazon. But we do support digital businesses. We don't work with many brick and mortar businesses. I'm sure there's a few, but the vast majority are these internet entrepreneurs, either selling digital services or products online.
You've given quite a bit of advice for new entrepreneurs, and you really dumbed it down in terms of where, if you were in their shoes, where you would incorporate, for example. Could you think of any other any advice that you would give, especially those people moving from abroad to the US, on what they should prioritize in their first couple years in the States?
Good question. I'll do some myths too. A lot of people, and unfortunately, if you live outside the US, you can't do this thing called an S-Corp election. If you live in the US, and for the US listeners listening, this is what's so important about bookkeeping, because the S-Corp election, to really dumb it down, is a tax election. You don't form an S-Corp. You elect to get taxed as one. And when you're doing about 50 to 75K in profit, and the only way you'll know that is you have to track your revenue and outflows, with this election, you end up decreasing this thing called the self-employment tax rate. And the reason why is because it creates an employee-employer relationship between you and the business, even if it's just you. And that can actually be quite meaningful, 4 or 5K up to 10K, depending on how much profit you're generating in taxes saved. So that's something I would tell to US founders, is keep that in mind. When you're approaching or get to that 50 to 75K, the S-Corp election can start to make sense. Otherwise, though, what I'd say for non-US founders is really just saying it is possible to, again, run the US entity, keep it compliant, bookkeeping, the informational tax filing. The biggest thing I'd recommend, though, is we at Doula, we do not have tax experts for your country. We've worked on many cases, so we understand, hey, we've done Canada enough times, or India, for example, that we understand some of the back and forths. But I always recommend have a professional in your country. Now, I'll hint again. We've gotten asked, hey, is Doula for India coming, or Doula for Canada? We have our hands full with the US now, but at least for now, our goal is over time, we can partner with more folks in these countries. But that's my other piece of advice for international founders. Please talk to a professional in your home country. We're even happy to connect. The professional in your country can chat with our CPAs, get the cash flow, P&L, balance sheet. We're happy to be the bridge there. But that's the other biggest piece of advice is oftentimes the cheapest mistake can be the most expensive. Or the most expensive mistake is choosing a cheap accountant. And you want to be very careful there, because you're penny wise, pound foolish. So really take that time up front. It's why on our website, we offer free consultations, no strings attached. There's no, hey, credit card. You literally can just talk to someone on our team. Actual humans, they're not AI avatars yet. And you can just talk to them and ask any question you have. We want to make sure that you have peace of mind before you begin.
And Arjun, on the S-Corp side, once our clients are legal residents, tax residents of the US, they can make the S-Corp election. And usually that kind of flows well where, in the second year, they're hitting that 50 to 70K mark. And then for that second tax year, they could potentially make the election. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. People rave about Dubai and certain tax-free jurisdictions, but the US, if you do it right, whether it's the S-Corp, or we've seen our clients sometimes do a C-Corp where closely held shares, they can pay no capital gains if they held it over 5 years in certain circumstances, up to 10 mil. There are, if you have the right advisor, and bring in your international, because there's all sorts of tax treaties, and Doula can help with that, or we can bring in a specialist. The US operating as an entrepreneur can be really tax efficient. And I think that's an important thing, but you got to do it right. If you screw it up, you can pay a lot in fines, and it can be troublesome, and you can overpay taxes.
Really good call out. There's cases to many other countries, but there might, maybe, I don't know. We get told a lot, hey, this seems more simple than it is to form a company in my country. And Doula is actually, we've set up a subsidiary in India. That process is cumbersome. Like tons of paperwork and digital wet signatures, not digital, which I still don't get to this day. It doesn't make sense that you have to hand sign something and they ask you to take a picture and send it anyway, because it wouldn't digital work. But point being said, it is a lot simpler in the US. And that's one kudos I'll give to the US is I do think, and this isn't a knock on the rest of the world, the US financial ecosystem or infrastructure is just further along. And it's been very supportive of entrepreneurship. Not that other countries aren't, but there's more hurdles. And I do think every time you add that hurdle, the bar for building tech has come down. The bar for getting access to capital has come down, but the bar for the courage to start a company has always been high. And I think anytime there's hurdles, it takes even more courage. So when you reduce hurdles, like the minimum amount of courage needed to start comes down. And I think that's why you see a lot of entrepreneurship in the US, and you shouldn't sleep on actually, like you said, you can do it very tax efficiently, and through the right partners and the right trusted back office partners, you don't have to do it all on your own. And I think that's another hurdle that people have to overcome, but there is a solution. And for a lot of people, like we said at the beginning, you don't need to become the next Airbnb or Dropbox or Coinbase. Several $1,000s per month or even per year can be life-changing. That's vacations, that's car payments, that's fun money, whatever it is for you, it's your life. But that's, I think, really fun and something that we get to be a part of.
Well, Arjun, you've been kind of in the background for the last few years, helping hundreds of our clients establish the LLC, IN, that whole process to get the basic formation. And now, you're taking a more active role in the ongoing work on the accounting and business in the box solution. So we really appreciate that and look forward to having more common clients and more collaboration.
Thank you. And again, it's been fantastic having partners we can trust for all the things we can't do well. We are not visa experts. We are not immigration experts. So I think it's really great. Rising tide lifts all boats. And if we're able to support different parts of the journey, ultimately we make it better for entrepreneurs. So I think the offer you have for your entrepreneurs and the service you guys provide too, in terms of how tailored it is incredible. We're very grateful. And I think for founders listening or around the world, really my main takeaway is you likely don't have to figure out something on your own. There's an expert out there. Do your research, of course. You can talk to a few folks, check the reviews, check the LinkedIn photos to make sure they're the same. You can do all your research. But ultimately, I think it's awesome what y'all have built. I'm very excited to continue to work with y'all too.
Well, Arjun, thanks so much. Your team's awesome. We love working with them. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Take care.